Well, good morning, Resurrection. I say good morning because I'm making this video on Thursday morning. This is my Wednesday video on Thursday. I woke up this morning and said, I never did a video yesterday. And I got here this morning and Elizabeth said, You never did a video yesterday. And I didn't. I apologize for that. I don't know how I got my days crossed. I'm casual today because I was not expecting to make a video. Got here this morning and I've got vegetables on my desk. Do you remember the first scene in the movie To Kill a Mockingbird? The very first scene, Scout is in the yard, and a farmer, an old farmer, comes up to the house with a sack of hickory nuts, and he left the hickory nuts on the porch by the back door, and Atticus comes out and tells Scout that Mr. So and so, I've forgotten his name, that he's paying his legal bill with a sack of hickory nuts because that's how he could pay. Priests used to get paid the same way. They lived in the house by the church. Sometimes it was connected to the church, and priests were paid from the harvest, from the bounty of the people around them. So whatever the people had, the priest had some of. They shared it with the priest, and that's how he was paid. That's how he didn't starve to death. That's how he had the things that he needed. And I got here this morning, and let's see what we've got this morning. We've got beautiful heirloom tomatoes, and we have what else? A red onion, and I've got also the biggest, most beautiful Napa cabbage that you've ever seen in your life. And I know who these came from. These came from Kathy, who is such a vegetable gardener that we all call her Pumpkin. And she keeps me stocked all the time. And it is a sweet thing that southern folks do, right? Weezer in Steel Magnolias says, I am a southern lady. I wear big hats and dig in the dirt and give away tomatoes. I don't make the rules. And that is what Southerners do. They share their vegetables. I have an uncle that was a vegetable farmer, and he supplied cucumbers and tomatoes to everybody that I knew. But it's also what church people do is we share the bounty. We share the fruits of our labor, and we share those with the church. We call that a tithe. We give of what we have, and sometimes it's tomatoes, and sometimes it's cucumbers, and sometimes it's dollars, and sometimes it's time, and sometimes it's the things that we can do, talent. We often say time, talent, and treasure. That those are the things that we tithe to the church. But the church has existed long before money existed. Back in the times of the Hebrew children, they didn't have money. They were an agrarian society, and so when they tithed their stuff, the first fruits, it was called. So when the harvest was finished, they took what they had, what they brought in, and they took the best and the first. They set aside the first fruits, the first vegetables, whatever, and they gave those to the church. Now, sometimes they were burned as a sacrifice. Sometimes the priests ate them because the priests didn't farm; they priested. That's what they did. Today is the same thing. My family exists off of the salary that I make, which comes from the tithes that the church members give to the church. And then, of course, I take 10% of that I'm given from the church in my salary, and I tithe 10% back as well. We all do that. We all jump in together. But God has always said, look, everything you have because I've given it to you. I'm giving you all of this to do with whatever you need to do. And all I ask is that you give a little bit, you set aside a little bit. The word to set something aside, that's what the word consecrate means. Consecrate means to set aside. a certain amount. We consecrate bishops. We set them aside from the other priests. We consecrate the Eucharist, right? It's bread and wine that we set aside for something holy, and we set aside the first fruits as the gifts that we give back to God. So we give back, we set aside, we consecrate a certain amount of what we have to give back. This parish does that beautifully. Has since the day I got here. It's something that you were already doing when I got here. It was, nothing that I ever had to harp on or teach or anything like that. And the reason that we do that is out of gratitude that God has given up, not that God is taking 10% or asking 10% from us, but that God has given us the 90. Uh, just because, just out of his grace and out of his abundance. There's that verse in the Bible that talks about God opening the windows of the storehouses of heaven so that his blessings can fall out upon us. And they're the verses that talk about how the sun shines on the good and the bad alike, and the rain falls on the just and the unjust, that God just gives us what he has for no reason other than it is his will. And so there are other things that he asks of us for no other reason than it is his will. And that's why we give back to God. We're getting close, y'all, on our Faithful and Bold campaign. I think by the end of the year, hopefully before the end of the year, we will be finished paying off our building note. I did not think it was possible to raise $600,000 to pay or more to pay off our building note in 10 months time. But that's what it's looking like we're doing. If the pledges keep coming in, and if we finish that up by the end of the year, it immediately we save on the interest, but immediately we skip those payments. Of course, there won't be any payments left. So the payments that have been budgeted, then we'll have that much left over in our budget every month. And I don't know if you know it, but it's about $7,000 a month that we're paying on that note. And so as we wait for the Outlaw estate for Sweet Patty's house to sell, as we wait for that, as we wait for the pledges to come in, we're in a relatively tight spot in the budget. That's not a surprise to us. We knew it. In fact, sometime in the middle of August, let's have a kind of a mid-year State of the Union and talk about where we are finance-wise. We knew that this was going to be a tight time for us, but we've tightened our belts to get through this tight time so that we will be done with that building note by the time we budget for next year. And Church of the Resurrection should be sitting fairly pretty by this time next year, or even sooner. So all of this talk about cabbages and tomatoes and cucumbers is basically just me saying to y'all, you are doing a very, very fine job with managing the resources of the church, giving of what God has given you, and I am nothing but grateful for it. I think we can look around and see the work that we have done this year. I think we're going to look back and go, whew, that was hard. But we're also going to look back and be really proud that we did it, and really grateful to God that he gave us the resources. And he gave us the 90% so that we could give back the 10 and say, we've done a pretty good job with the resources of the kingdom. And I think we have. I'm proud of you. I love you. I'll see you Sunday at 8 o'clock or 10:30. And I won't be late on the video next week.